Thanks.
Hello, and welcome to Keep That Same Energy Thursday, your favorite day, your new favorite day of the week. Not to compete with Friday or anything, but I know how you guys feel about Thursday as well because your favorite show is on. And tonight we are having a very good conversation with two great people. And so I can't wait to get into the show, but I can't have a show without the viewers. So let's get you guys in here. Let me take it to the phone so that you guys know that we're on. Right now, obviously, we are straight live. We'll keep that same energy. And now I'm going to share to the right of your page and a couple group pages. You can also find us live streaming right now in this very moment on YouTube. All you have to do is put in the search bar, keep that same energy, and we should pop right on up and you should be able to share that as well. So let me go ahead and share the show so you guys can come on in the room. All right. We're getting there. Come on in the room. I'm sharing to as many places as I possibly can so that everyone can get a chance to be a part of the conversation tonight. Don't forget the comment section is all about you guys. You can post your comment, you can post your question, you can post your concern, you can post if any information that can be of service and be of help. Forgive me, there is my eye won't let me be great tonight, but that's okay. I'm gonna be great regardless. And give you guys just a couple more minutes to come on in here as I continue sharing it. Ooh. And one more share. It should get you all there. Because you know what I always say, sharing is caring. So come on. When you get in the room, make sure you share it on your pages as well so that whatever bases I don't cover, you got me covered. There they are. Good evening, Kiera. How are you? We are waiting on you to join in, and let's see if I can even create a watch party that way. I think they pulled that for some reason because every time I try to do a watch party, it just doesn't go in my favor. But that's okay because we got you guys going. And we got you guys going strong. So I promise you have like a 30 more seconds to come on in here before you have to catch up on this information. And what I'm going to do so that you guys don't miss too much as they are talking about certain things and they're hitting certain points, I'm going to also type in the comment section so that you guys can kind of refer back to some things that they said if they're directing you to a certain place or location or information or whatever may have you. I'm going to make sure you guys are able to get that information. There it goes. And there is the tagline if you're looking for us on YouTube. I promise you guys I'm trying to stay out my eye, but it's just being relentless right now. I don't know if it's my hair or what it is. But the show will go on. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Keep That Same Energy. It's your girl, Ronnie Dior, and I was looking forward to this night all week long. I was excited about getting into this conversation. Actually, I've been looking forward to this night since I decided in January that we were going to have this on the second episode of February, because I feel like we really need to identify our allies. We really need to understand what that means. We really need to understand how we work together. And that is like the cups of why I started the show as well. I not only wanted to bring forth the resources, access, opportunities, and concerns of the Black community, but also provide a platform in which if anyone is concerned, wanted to help, wanted to reach out, wanted to be a part, wanted to figure out how they can do their part, then they have information because they tune in and they hear about it and then they run with it and do what they got to do to be able to help. And so I can't then have a show of such and then not have topics where I actually present the platform. So without further ado, we're going to introduce to some and just say hey to others that already know our lovely two guests for this topic for tonight that we are endearingly calling Allies in Action. That is a big deal. And we're going to talk about why. So first up, I would like to introduce Councilwoman Trisha Butler. She is the Councilwoman of Ward 12. She's also a U.S. Army veteran. She served 2 tours, one in Iraq and one in Afghanistan. She's a wife and a mother of 4. She serves on the Housing and Community Development and Streets, Garage and Transformation Committees. Say hello to our lovely Councilwoman. And how are you doing tonight?
You said it so elegantly. I feel like a princess.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and get into the next gentleman we have on the roster here. We have State Representative Jason Hodges joining us tonight. He is in his 2nd term, of District 67 in the Tennessee General Assembly. I'm so excited. I would like to say okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. He's a Marine Corps veteran. He serves on the Insurance Committee, the Local Government Committee, the Commerce Committee. He's also a member of the Business and Utilities Subcommittee and the Property and Planning Subcommittee. He was recent. Well, I don't know if he was recently, but I know he was appointed, and this was interesting to me, which I'm going to ask you about in a second, to the Minority Whip of the House Democratic Caucus to serve as the Deputy Minority Whip for the 112th General Assembly. He's also a member of the Roxy Board, Montgomery Health Council, Montgomery County Democratic Party, and the Montgomery County NAACP, and a former Montgomery County Commissioner and former Vice President of the Two Rivers Company. He also has two children. His wife's name is Diana. Everybody, welcome State Representative Mr. Jason Hodges to the show.
Well, thanks for having me.
I'm very appreciative that you guys both accepted my invitation. I will like to say you were the very first people that I had in mind when I thought about this show. As you guys both were running for office for this term, I've seen you both with boots on the streets during that time frame, leading up to that time frame, and not just only during that time frame, which is very important. I've seen you, period. And that just speaks more volumes than most people would like to understand. So I want to know why you ran for office. Like, why are you in the particular roles that you're in? Why do you do what you do? So, Ms. Trisha, can you start us off first? Ladies first.
Oddly enough, that has a little bit to do with why I ran. I looked up on the city council. At the time, I was a stay-at-home mom, and I was like, where am I at? I don't see me up there. So, I mean, that was my motivating factor. This is all I do. A lot of talking on the phone and writing emails now. And I do it. I wanted to continue to serve when you leave the Army, or the military in general, that camaraderie and stuff like that. And serving a bigger purpose than yourself it leaves a hole. So that was a lot of why. And I just wanted to, I just kind of wanted to be a normal guy in an elected position, thinking like a normal guy. Do you know what I mean?
I like that answer. Okay. And Mr. Hodges, why do you do what you do, and running even a second time?
Yeah. So, what got me started in politics in the first place is when my daughter was very young, she needed a bladder surgery. And I was working full time. I had insurance. I was paying a lot of money in premiums every month. And out of pocket, I ended up paying about $14,000 for that surgery. And it was tough for me to pay, but what really bothered me, I think, was the person making $10 an hour. How would they have paid for that? And as I researched it, the more you see, generally they either go bankrupt or they don't pay for it. And then in my child's case, she would have been left with probably a bedwetting problem her entire life, and had bladder issues her entire life, and would have obviously changed her circumstances immensely. And so that got me interested, that topic, and then just started researching more, and really found a passion in policy and trying to make things better for people.
And I love both of those responses, because to me, it sounds like regular people meeting the needs of regular people and understanding that we're all the same, and it's about help and helping not only just ourselves, but like you said, you thought of how somebody else was going to be impacted. In your situation, you was able to think, okay, if this is an issue, man, how could this be something for somebody else? And then even just when you said, I don't see myself up there, okay, that's a problem. And I can change it only by running instead of complaining. Let's get up there. And so I love it. And I love the that you're actually not just talking it, but you're also doing it, and you're showing us. And so I appreciate that. I definitely do. So what I want to know is, since things kind of have become more, I should say, televised, as far as social injustice, we know it's always been there, but it's becoming more televised because of the power of social media, the power of everyone having a phone, the power of everything just being so quick to hit, the gram or Facebook or whatnot. We see things more, and we're privy to now more things. And now we have this thing that's like being woke. And I'm kind of over the whole term of woke, because I'm like, okay, now what does that mean? Like, what does that mean for you? Just to say you understand now, you see now, like, okay. Not to take away from anybody who was in the dark and now they have better understanding, but I feel like at some point we have to mature beyond being woke, because we can't just stay at the point of now I know, because it's always been, and we have to kind of elevate to the next stop. So my question is, if you can articulate on this, what's the difference between being an ally to the Black community, or just being an ally period of something, versus just being woke to something? And whoever would like to go first.
Sure. And I would just say, I don't use the terminology woke very often, but I'll use it here right now. I would think woke means exactly what you said. It means that the person understands that there's issues out there, and an ally is working to do something about it, right? And so at this point, we all know the problems are out there. So really, it requires all of us to do something about it. And so that's, but I'd say that's a simple difference between the two.
We've definitely weaponized the phrase woke. It went from being this positive connotation of being awoke to the circumstances around you, and it turned into same thing with like snowflake. It became that equivalent. It's like you use that word for good. Well, now we're gonna turn it into a joke about you. So I too never really got onto that, and the whole premise of being an ally, and it is all in action. It's just waking up in the morning and, doing that thing. And I never really had a woke moment, because I grew up in the backwoods of Pennsylvania. Like, everybody was white, and not everybody was racist, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's the culture. And I joined the Army, And then all of a sudden I was around people of every color. Mexicans it was crazy to me to be around, Puerto Ricans. And so it wasn't like suddenly I woke up. It was like, here you are, this is real life now, So.
And so would you say then your term, well, actually both of you served, in your time of serving, did it kind of, what was your experience then in being in a culture where you saw multi-races and you had to work together to get to the same achievement? Like you guys were on the same call. You guys had to work together in order to make this happen, and seeing either that happening or seeing the struggles of being able to come together and that happen, and how, if at all, did that kind of further shape you, I guess, on the premises of it?
Yeah, it was already natural to me, right? I went to school here at Northeast High School, pretty diverse school, very integrated school.
Mm-hmm.
So it was. I've always been there. I'm just I don't think the Marine Corps is obviously very diverse and integrated as well. So it was just a smooth transition for me. I didn't. The backwoods of Pennsylvania would be foreign to me rather than.
Lucky you.
Yeah.
Now, how was it for you once you got there and you noticed, obviously, this is different? What was, I guess, the enlightening part, or just how did you guys just gel as far as when you were serving that you noticed?
So I was in the Quartermaster Corps, which is primarily minorities. So then I became this minority among minorities. And, there were some hard times. There were some times when there was a lot of cultural ignorance there. And after like, it's kind of like a duck learning to walk after I got my wobbly weird leg. It became very interesting for me to, just learn about people from all over the US that came from different backgrounds, So for me, it was more, people thought I was silly in my naivety a lot. I think I really lucked out in meeting the right people who were, they taught me, they educated me, So I lucked out.
So that was, I think, a big word two big things you just said. You said culturally ignorant and teaching. Now, how vital is that right now for us within the United States of America? How important do you think it is for us to teach each other about each other's culture, to kind of to play a role in reducing the social tension and the injustice, and then understanding the cultural ignorance, or being or willing to acknowledge that there is cultural ignorance?
Super, super important. If you want to talk about actually getting woke, I think that would be when we're actually woke, is once we all understand, why things are a certain way. And I think that you start to build the bridges and mend the past in doing that, and understand, because when you first start, say, dating someone, right? It's all fire in the beginning, right? But what really bonds you together are your experiences, and when you learn about each other and where you came from and things like that.
Now, Ms. Hodges, with you going to a diverse school, because yes, Northeast definitely is, and that's one thing I like the most about that area, how diverse it is. What would you say as far as how that plays out in the world today, as far as the cultural ignorance and helping each other to learn of each other? Because it is like, obviously, the Statue of Liberty, bring your tired, your poor. So it's like a melting pot of all kind of cultures, but it doesn't seem like we're congealing.
Well, because, yeah, so that term melting pot can be deceiving a little bit, right? Because you can have a community that's made up of many different groups of people, but if you have a black neighborhood and a white neighborhood and a Hispanic neighborhood and they're all separated, then there is no diversity. And so one of the things that I think is important about this community, and that's impressive about this community, is look at the school systems. Look at it, how the school systems are districted. And we don't have white schools or black schools or anything like that. We are very integrated. And we're far from perfect. We have a long ways to go in Clarksville. But if you look at Clarksville compared to the rest of Tennessee, we are miles ahead. And I'll tell you, somebody that tours the state fairly often with my job, I can assure you we are far ahead of where other places are, because when I bring people here, when I bring other legislators here, they're shocked at how integrated we actually are. They're shocked at coming to a restaurant and seeing a table of, a diverse table of people hanging out and being friends. And that seems normal to us, but it does seem foreign to a lot of people in Tennessee. And so we have to understand that for all the problems that we see in our community, the problems are immensely bigger in other parts of the state.
So I would definitely say I see that and applaud us to it. That's one thing I've noticed, the coming together. And I think that's good, which I believe creates an arena for there to be allies, for there to be more teaching of different cultures so that we can learn from each other, to know how to help one another and actually then show up and be there for one another. And then the reduction then of cultural ignorance, because cultural ignorance can only withstand all this integration if you're trying not to come together, you're trying not to learn, you're trying not, you're trying to keep it separate. And you're right, I don't see that much in this area. So with that being said, if someone is, throwing around this term woke to try to, I just sometimes feel like that's used to seem important, not seem important, but seem like you're connecting, but that's really all you're doing is just posting things, and then that's that. What would be your advice, guidance, or steering of somebody going from woke to an ally? And how is that is that a big jump, a progressive jump? How does that work?
I think just speak up, right? When that's step one is just do the right thing and speak up. When you see it, call it out. And you don't just have to see it, but we can see data, right? I know that statistically your children are far more likely to be pulled over by a police officer. Your children are far more likely to be arrested. Your children are far more likely, if both of our kids are arrested, to face a longer sentence. And it's because of the color of your skin. And we can't hide from that. We've got to call it out, because until we call it out, until we acknowledge it, we're not going to be able to fix it. So, people have to come to terms with it. They have to speak up about it. And that way we can do something about it, because as long as a large percentage of the population is still in denial, passing legislation for me is impossible, because there's not enough pressure. Right? There's just not enough pressure on legislators to do the right thing. And so I would say just really start understanding and putting yourself in other people's shoes, and then defending them like you would your own family.
That's big. Defending them as if you would your own family. What do you have to say about that, Trisha?
Faith without works is dead. So you can't say I'm woke and then walk out the door and not live it out, It's funny that you guys are talking about Tennessee, the difference. I had a friend that I went to school with in Pittsburgh, and she's Black, and her mom was around during segregation in Pittsburgh. And I wanted to bring her to Tennessee with me once I moved back from school. And her mom was having no parts of it because she was afraid of Tennessee. And once her name's Nia. Once my friend got down here, she was like, "There's Black people here," and I was like, "Well, I tried to tell you that." And they had a very different understanding, and maybe that is what the rest of Tennessee's like. And I am thankful to be where we are. But you're precisely right. You have to say something. And for me, what that looks like, because I am a naive white girl in a lot of aspects, I researched. So I started looking up the numbers and stuff for incarcerations and getting pulled over, because when I go to my people who are like, oh, but there's this big deal being made about this, it's not even true, then I have facts and statistics. These are not just my opinions. Like the numbers, like our rep was saying, the numbers support it. You can't keep denying something that's fact,
Yes.
So that is how I approach that. Then when someone says, oh, well, it's not like that, and I'm like, well, actually it is, and here this and this tells you why. I found that effective.
Because facts, that's why they're called that. Either facts or lies, right? And I definitely agree with that. It's about not just thinking or just saying something and putting something out there and see if it sticks, right? You actually have to do your background work. You have to do the research. Because just speaking from as a Black woman, it becomes like that, to where we're just saying things or we're just putting this out there when it's like, this is my experience. Like, this is my life experience. And if you want to look at the facts, you can find it there as well. But I'm not just saying something so that I can play the victim role. Like, I don't want to be a victim. I'd rather not be in the victim seat and be more empowered and be powerful. So that is the gist of that. And I definitely appreciate you even speaking that. Research, getting the understanding, getting the facts, looking it up, understanding that it's actually real. And even what you said, Representative Hodges, about saying something, not just acknowledging it, but actually putting mouth to it, saying something about it, and even maybe putting some muscle behind it with faith without works, So then with that being said, I know how important allies are to the Black community. But from your point of view, being one, how have you seen that be actually possibly a turning point of having an ally, being an ally, seeing that you guys matter, seeing that things get done, with that allegiance?
Yeah, well, in every level of government, the majority of that makeup is still white, right? And so you're going to need allies to get legislation passed that can change some of these things and begin to change hearts and minds. And so, like when it comes to legislation, I can tell you many times it's more impactful for a white person to present a civil rights bill or something like that, because it not only means a lot to the minority community that they see that hey, look, there are white people that understand, that see what's going on and are with us, and but it also calls out your own. I mean, watch me on the House floor sometimes and see the looks I get for some of the comments I make, and you'll know real quickly that I think it stings a little bit more when they hear it from what they perceive as their own. And so I think it's important in every aspect.
For me, so I really didn't identify myself as an ally until I got your email. I was like, oh, that's me. Because it's just kind of, like I said, it's just life, it's living. But I will say this, through all of the different things that have happened with BLM over the last, I'm going to say just the last 4 years that I've kind of been paying attention. This year, and maybe it was COVID, I don't know what it is. This year, it became like we were more welcome. So I could be more active. And I remember reading a lot, and I spoke a little bit with like Maurice, and I think I even spoke with Shedrick about it too. That was kind of the leaning this go around, you know, like that we could show up at the protest and you know, be supportive and stuff like that. So I'm not sure exactly what changed or whatnot, but I am very thankful that this year, because I just never wanted to come in and make it about white people, you know, but I wanted to also be supportive. So I'm not sure how it's worked out, but I'm glad that it has.
You know, that's an interesting fact you brought up, and I never looked at it from that perspective until you actually said something of feeling invited to be a part of it. And I can't speak on behalf of all Black people, but I guess I'm gonna have to like kind of tonight. It was almost like we've always wanted you guys to come, but at the same time, not, because we wanted to do it by ourselves. We wanted to get there by ourselves. We wanted to show that our strength and power. And then we had to also realize that we actually need somebody from the outside of the culture to step in and see it just as valuable and just as important. Now, granted, yes, we've always wanted this is, you know, Bernie Sanders territory, right? One of the main things he, you know, kept bringing up when he was running, like, hey, I was there, you know, and we know that it's valuable and important because just like Rep. Hodges, you said, you understand that sometimes it is a white person that has to push the agenda forward, because hearing it from your own kind stings a little, brings it to your face a little bit. It's almost like calling it out. Like what we're not going to do is just look over this and glaze over like it's okay. You know, I'm not going to be a part of that. That just says, we'll just keep as is, and it is what it is. And having someone that is not of our color and complexion be able to see it, it does seem to make it more real. It does seem to make it like, okay, this is value. This is important. This is because it, like I said before, when someone of color would speak about it, it's a victim card. It's a race card. It's you're saying this is happening when it really isn't happening. It's like, but then when someone, which is why we say allies, steps up and says something too, it's like, see, we're not playing the victim role. We're not just throwing up a race card. This is actually happening. This is actually being seen by somebody that looks just like you, and they can acknowledge it as well. So it is very important having allies and understanding that sometimes it didn't seem like you were invited to the party to be able to stay in together. But we saw a lot of that this past year, of which I think, thankful to televising it, I guess, thankful to how far internet has gone and the media has gone to allow that to happen so that we can feel supported, because it makes us feel better too. It makes us actually feel stronger and empowered with your backings. So it doesn't hinder the drive. It actually makes it a lot stronger and a lot more forceful. So with those places now where we're trying to integrate, trying to get the opportunity, trying to get the access, trying to move things forward, having your support, what have you seen as ways that you guys have been able to welcome those of color who before hasn't been welcome, or the idea that we're trying to push forward? How have you welcomed them to spaces that normally we wouldn't be able to get a worded, be able to get in there to speak? We wouldn't be able to get the message put across. We wouldn't be able to pass this particular bill or get this particular thing put forth in front of somebody, or this person would not have been able to be in that position. Where have you seen, maybe not even your own selves, but just period, where allies have created the space for that?
Yeah. So I want to be cautious on giving credit to allies, right? Because I think that the credit is owed to people that demanded equal rights for years and years and years, and we don't need to credit us white people that are speaking out with giving Black people a place at the table. Black people have worked hard for a place at the table, and they've said, I'm taking my place at the table. And I think you see that in our Democratic caucus, in the House of Representatives, right? If you look at it, the Democratic Party 30 years ago, you had the Black Caucus, in all Democrats, and the positions of leadership, though, in that Democratic caucus were generally left to white people. And I'm proud to say that our caucus leadership, our leader, Leader Camper, is an African-American woman from Memphis, and our chairman for the Democratic caucus is an African-American male from Nashville, Vincent Dixie. And so, and those positions weren't given to them because they're Black. Those positions, we as a caucus elected them because they were the most qualified people for those positions. And in 30 years ago, they may have been the most qualified, but they wouldn't necessarily have been elected to those leadership positions. So the two most powerful positions in our caucus are held by two African Americans. And I can honestly say it's not because they're African American. It's because they're the most qualified. So in spite of being African American, they are in those leadership positions, where 30 years ago, you probably wouldn't have seen that. And so that's progress. Too slow. It's not moving at the pace that it should. And we got to keep chipping away. But I definitely don't want to attribute that to allies, because I think that African Americans have worked hard to demand their place at the table, and we're just doing what we're supposed to be doing, and saying yes, every person should be treated equal.
Right. So I definitely don't want to confuse that.
No, I know that's not what you said. I just mean for any viewers or anything like that.
Right. Like that's how I said, let's clear this up for the viewers. We're not saying because of the white man, we're able to do this now. No. That's not even how this movement has even started. It was by saying absolutely not. This is what we are going to take a seat at the table. But I guess just to clarify, definitely for the viewers, I know you're not confused at all, but for the viewers, the question pretty much is, and you pretty much answered it, and I don't even know if you realized it, that even though we're demanding a seat at the table, even though we're highly educated, even though we come with facts and all the things that we need to qualify us for certain positions and qualify us for certain things, we still was getting the door shut. So the question is, how were you making sure that no, they're going to come on up in here, because regardless of what color, regardless of gender, they're qualified. And what I heard you say was, we decided in spite of their color, they're the most qualified for this position. So we're not going to allow you to shut the door because of their color. We're not putting them in this place because of their color, but we've also seen you can be the highest qualified and still not get it because you didn't have the right skin tone. Yeah. And so in this position that you even spoke about, it was, we voted them in because they were qualified. And I think that, to me, is what it's going to have to take, is deciding that this is how, because we're not asking for a seat because we're Black. We're asking equal access and opportunity because of our qualifications, and not to be discarded because of anything else other than how we match up with the next counterpart that's running for the same position, and let it because we were out educated or something, qualification, background, experience, whatever like that, than the next person. And I think when you said making sure that we voted them in because they were the most qualified is one of the ways that you see.
Yeah, and I'll say one more thing. When the minority that is most qualified is brought to that position, we have to ensure they're being fairly supported, because I'm just going to tell you, think about, with all the abilities that Barack Obama brought to the table, and regardless of your political affiliation or whatever, but highly intelligent, highly moral character, has everything going for him, right? I mean, just a very impressive person who I can only aspire to be like. What if his name was, Jack Johnson and he was white? How successful would he have been in that position? And that, I think that's a fair question. I mean, what level of support would he have been given if he would have had a different name in a different color? And so he demanded success because he works hard and he fought hard to accomplish great things while he was in office. And, I'll be partisan on that. I feel like great things while he was in office. But how hard was that for him? And is it fair to him that he had to deal with the circumstances he had to deal with while he was there? And I feel like we is a nation, and especially as Democrats, should have been there more throughout his tenure for him, because at the end of the day, we kind of left the man on an island, right? I mean, he got in and everybody was like, all right, you're president, do the job. And it's like, no, you can't stop here. We've got to support the president. And, when you had Tea Party protests to protests against him, there were a lot of Democrats sitting on their couch at home like, well, he's our president. Well, but it's time to support him. And so we've got to make sure when we have a minority that gets to that position, that we support them the same way we would support the white person.
So that is actually more what I was thinking when I read this question. Now that we do see, especially after this year, I was on Wilma Rudolph during the protest, and what was being said was, here's what we're going to do. We're going to run for office. We're going to take our part in the process, right? So now that we see that that's happening, I think that our responsibility, much like you were just saying with the president, is once there's, one black guy in the room, you don't just leave him over in the corner by himself. He's on the team now. You treat him like a part of the team. Because if once you get there and you can't do anything with the people around you, you have the seat at the table, but still no voice, right. So it is the whole thing. And I even wrote down, it's about follow through. Now we have to do it. We can't have the destination syndrome. Like, all right, we made it. We have a black president and everything's cool now. No. We still have to keep working, because it's just very deliberate, and it shouldn't be that way. Don't get me wrong, but for now, that's how it is. And it needs to be deliberate until it's habit, until it is life. You know what I mean?
Regular occurrence. Like that's just how things are. Like Representative, I just said, well, that was just regular. There was no intent behind it, because it became your way of life, of how you were choosing to continue to live life, how you're choosing to continue doing things. And then did that have anything to do with why either one of you decided the particular offices or particular committees or particular associations that you would be a part of, that it would have to at least match up to how you were choosing to view life, as far as we're all in this together? I'm not going to be a part of something where I'm starting to realize that, oh, you're solely for this. Like you're almost like in a segregation type of mindset, where I'm more of a come together type thing. Have you ever been in a issue like that? Or do you purposely make sure that that's something that you pay attention to when you join these different things?
You're going to light me up with this. I have to be honest. I think everybody knows at this point that I'm third party. A lot of my issue in the GOP, and I've always been GOP. My friends are still GOPers, but the reason that I separated from the party did have a lot to do with women not having the same place. The the problems, surrounding gays, and then the problems with cannabis. And those, I think, whenever we start talking about cannabis, there is an unequal, that all has to do. I mean, the cannabis was outlawed because of Mexicans. Like that, it's all about control. And when you look at, and it is a fact that I looked through affidavit every day of arrest warrants, and Black men are pulled over, and there's a smell like so inordinately in comparison here in Montgomery County, So when we start talking about things like that, I mean, that did have somewhat of an effect on why I left. But, in reality, I guess when I made my decisions, they were kind of like, okay, I'm not comfortable in this situation or whatnot. But as far as which boards I sit on, I think that Representative Hodges will have something better to say. I just get appointed to my boards. The mayor's like, this is what you're doing. So I didn't have any choice there.
Well, it's even whether boards or affiliations in just your personal life, just your everyday, because you have to I feel like you can't just show up on this side. It has to be your everyday throughout your day occurrence of how you are and who you are.
Yeah, I'm not interested in being at a Klan meeting. I like to be in inclusive groups, and so it's just where I've always gravitated towards.
Because just who you are. And I think that's the difference when we talk about being woke and being an ally. And for you not even trying to use that term, well, I'm an ally, so I'm doing this and I'm doing it's more of this just has commercialism, woke to say it, and an ally is an everyday life. It's not, oh, I am. Well, this is just what I do. This is just who I am. This is just how I move.
Well, you shouldn't be
difference.
You shouldn't be proud of the fact that you're an ally, because it should be natural, right? I mean, we're talking about equal rights. We're talking about civil rights. I mean, if you're not an ally, there's a problem. Yeah. And that's the fact, and that's the way we need to view it. Is I don't get a cookie for doing the right thing and supporting equal rights. And I mean, I shouldn't be patted on the back for that. I mean, that should be a minimum. This is just normal. In anything less,
good, decent human, good job.
Anything less should be viewed as unacceptable to us, right? And that's just, so that's the mindset I think we need to have. We can't be accepting of people that think it's okay to continue to allow different people of different backgrounds to be treated differently, period.
I agree with that. I think that sounds more than good, because you shouldn't have to spell out ally. That should just be there shouldn't be allies. An ally means there is, something we have to, there shouldn't be an ally in civil rights. There should, in those kind of sectors, because it's what are we doing? What do you mean? What? This isn't normal? This isn't natural? Oh, okay. Well, sure. I agree with that. 100-fold. But the way we are, the world we live in, that's what we're trying to break up. That's what we're trying to come up against. So with that, we have President Joe Biden come into office and immediately started signing deals and kind of shaking up some things and kind of doing some things. And really, he's been running on the premise of social injustice, and which was obviously a Democratic Party point of view, but mainly because of what has been going on for the last 4 years. And what are your thoughts on his entrance? He bust through the door and said, all right, I'm signing this, and this, so we can get this, ball rolling. What were your thoughts? Did you feel like it was an attention grabber, outlandish, or do you think it was like, okay, you know, cool, let's go ahead and get it started. Let's rip the band-aid right on off and go on up in there? Or like, what was your thoughts on that? Because he basically, the equality bill, it just incorporated fair housing, private prison funding, the Muslim travel ban, how Asian Americans were being perceived because of the Chinese virus, which is not a thing. What was your take on that, I should say?
Yeah. So for me, you know, what I give everybody that asks for my advice that's looking to get into political office, or when they get into political office, I always tell them, don't wait. You don't know how long you're going to be there. You know, you're not guaranteed more than one term. So, and you know, you shouldn't be concerned about another term, because you didn't get elected to get reelected. You got elected because you wanted to, hopefully, because you wanted to create positive change, and focus on that change that you wanted to create. Don't back down. You know, push it out and try to get as much as you can to get accomplished. So, hats off for working hard to anybody that's in office and doing what they think is right, and get it done as quick as possible.
All right.
He absolutely will tell you that as soon as you get into office. He's not just blowing smoke right now. He actually tells you that exact thing. I have heard the words. I hyper focus locally, so I don't pay a lot of attention to what's going on. But of course, with how dramatic this one has all been, I'm a small government person, so I'm like, stop signing all these executive orders. But the ones that you have listed here, I think it was just follow through. Like you were saying, this is what he ran on. These are the things that he could take care of the quickest. And you know, especially when it comes to prison reform, I'm down, you know, with that. Travel bans doesn't work for me. People should be allowed to move freely. So yeah, a couple of these, I'm not even gonna lie, I didn't know what they were till you just explained them. And it's not because I'm an ignorant jerk, I swear. It's because I pay attention to what's happening in Clarksville, because that's what I can affect.
Which takes us to the next thing, because we have a local level and a national level. Nationally, we just need to know who's up there and what they, you know, messing around with. But we have to make the earthquake on the local level, right? Because this is where we're getting hit. This is the home base, and that's what's going to take it on up the pipeline. Because whatever they're doing up there, it has to trickle through, and you still have how it's going to play out in our lives locally. So then my question is, right now, what are some bills or legislation that you guys are presenting that we can support the move to continue to move this thing forward?
Sure. I didn't want to always steal the first question, Trisha. So.
If you want me to answer first, I can answer.
Yeah, no, I don't mind.
Mine are more piddly anyway. He gets to do the real stuff. And actually, one of mine is going to state legislature. So yeah, you're right. Let me start. My biggest piece of legislation right now that my fingers are crossed on, because it has passed first reading, is the repeal of the Airbnb regulations. And it's interesting that you brought that up, because it was actually the leaders in the Black community that brought that to the forefront of my mind. Juanita Charles, for instance, she's the one that posted about it, and I got that from her, and I was like, oh, you know. So, and that does inordinately affect our service members, and also people trying to think of new ways to make it, especially with COVID. So that is one thing that I'm waiting on right now. And then the other thing is that I am going to put forward a resolution asking our state legislature to do something about the cannabis. I would prefer, of course, a complete decriminalization or recreational legality, but shoot, we'll start with anything little, go decrim or something like that. So I am going to be putting in a resolution from the city of Clarksville asking the state legislature to do that, to kind of set a precedent.
Well, Trish, I have 2 cannabis bills that I'm running. So good. One is a medical cannabis, legalizing that, and the other is allowing prescriptions from other states that prescribe medical cannabis to be legal here in Tennessee. And then I'm a co-sponsor of decriminalization. So it's actually 3 bills that I'm part of on cannabis. Another bill that I think might be important to the Black community that I have right now is, it's a bill that what it would essentially do is, if a police officer pulls you over, and whether they use probable cause or even whether they get consent to search your vehicle, they would have 3 days to go stand in front of a judge and explain why they searched that vehicle. And so the intent behind that is, as we talked about data earlier, right? We know who's getting pulled over, and we know who's getting their car searched. And it's not me. So the fact is that people, in too many cities, police officers will sit outside of a minority neighborhood, wait for a nice car to come out, and pull that person over with the intent to search the vehicle. That's not right. And, to say, well, I smelled marijuana. Okay, well, go tell the judge that. And the 6th time this month that you pulled over a car and you smelled marijuana but didn't find any marijuana, let's see what the judge thinks about you wasting the judge's time. In the same way with consent, right? Because it's like, well, I got consent. Well, you got consent from a 19-year-old Black kid that you basically told you were going to search your vehicle. That's not consent. I mean, the kid's scared to death. So, it's hard for that individual to consent. So I don't think it's too much to ask. And one of the biggest pushbacks I've gotten already from police departments across the state and from sheriff's departments across the state is, do you know how much time we're going to spend in court dealing with this? And my response has been, do you realize that's the problem? Like,
right.
Why are you searching this many cars? Like, what? Like, that's supposed to be a last resort. That it's not. The constitutional intent of searches wasn't meant to like just bombard people and say, hey, you were speeding, I'm gonna search your car, guy. That wasn't the point.
Right.
And so we gotta quit normalizing car searches. Right. And so that is one, along with the cannabis bills. We also have
what's the name of that bill so we can be on the lookout for it? I'm typing it in the comment section so that they can be aware.
I will.
I'm gonna write that one down too.
Yeah, let me try to find the House bill number real quick for you. But it's HB 600, House Bill 600.
Probable cause. There needs to be a higher level for what probable cause is.
Absolutely.
Especially when you have CBD's legal. CBD flowers legal. Guess how it smells? The exact same way.
Yeah, and we also, I've got another bill that I'm sponsoring that will basically overturn the protest bill. If you remember that.
Yes.
That they ran last year.
Yes.
It's a long shot. I'm just going to be honest. It passed overwhelmingly.
Is that the one where if you fall asleep anywhere around that you would get a felony?
No, it's not just falling asleep.
Protest.
So that means if you're out on state grounds past 10 p.m., they can arrest you, and you can actually go to prison for it.
A felony charge.
Yeah, and lose.
Yeah, they made like everything a felony.
Insulin is another issue. And obviously in the African American community, diabetes is a concern, and so my insulin bill is basically that $100 a month, a 30-day supply would be limited to $100 a month. That manufacturers couldn't charge more than $100 for a 30-day supply. And so, you know, a lot of people will kind of argue, well, you know, you got to let the markets work themselves. But let me tell you about insulin real quick. We're talking about a product that costs between $6 and $7 to make for a vial, not just manufacture, but get to the end seller. So when Walgreens sells that insulin, it costs them about $6 to $7 to get there and then sell that product. They're charging upwards about $350 for a vial, depending on what you get. You know, a diabetic can need up to 4 vials a month. So, you know,
somebody who has diabetes, I definitely know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so we're talking $1,400 a month, and you know, the way I explained it in committee when they threw the we got to let the free market work is that the free market works great with wants. It's why we can all have big screen TVs in our house, because we want it. We don't have to have it. So when we go to Best Buy to look at those big screen TVs, if they're too expensive, we leave. You can't do that with insulin.
You can't.
You will die without it. And so, you know, it's like during committee, I had a bottle of water, and I said, if I tried to sell you guys this bottle of water for $100 right now, you'd laugh in my face. But if we were in a desert and dehydrated and you were on the brink of death, you'd give me everything you own for that bottle of water. And that's what these pharmaceutical companies are doing to their patients. They've got them on you know, in a desert, and they're abusing them, and we've got to put an end to it. And so very passionate about it. I think it's the right thing to do. You know, they manipulate the market as well. They're down to 3 manufacturers, and the prices go up, oddly enough, all at the same time by the same amount. So they're manipulating the market anyway. That's not how the free market works. Yep, go ahead.
I was just going to say, as someone who's big, when you're talking about free market, that's me. I'm that guy. But you can't call it the free market when it's all based on lobbying and cronyism. Yeah. That's not the free market. It's corruption. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're okay. And then the final bill I'll say is something we've been working on a long time is Medicaid expansion, and it's expanding Medicaid. I've got a Republican sponsor. We've got several Republicans supporting it this time around. If you guys don't know, a lot of people, whether you agree with the Affordable Care Act, which is called Obamacare by some, whether you agree with it or disagree with it, it's federal law, right? And so we can either take the money or we can reject the money. And as a state of Tennessee right now, we've rejected $7 billion.
Wow.
For people's health care. And,
wow.
You know, they pay 90%. We only owe 10%. And you can say, well, that's 10%. Yeah, but the hospital association agreed to pay that 10%.
Wow.
So we weren't going to pay anything. And Bredesen wrote up such a good bill that there was a clause that if the federal government ever ended the money, that we could end the program. So there's absolutely zero reason not to have it. And so supportive of that bill and going to keep fighting for it. And we also have a new bill that will ask for a Medicaid buy-in. So every individual that needs insurance and wants to buy into Tennessee's TennCare program would be able to buy into it. And I think giving Blue Cross Blue Shield and those companies a little competition is okay.
I like it. These are some great bills that's going to be impactful for all communities, and definitely some that are going to impact the Black community just because of how some of these are show up within that area, we should say, when it comes to a lot of these bills you guys are passing. I put them all in the comment section so that it can be seen, so they know exactly which ones and how to start looking for them, because as far as I'm concerned, these meetings are open when you guys have certain meetings and discuss and present certain resolutions and certain bills where the community can show up and hear more about it, ask questions, be able to support it, so that they know what's in the works and what's coming up and why it even matters for your community, why it even matters for you on a local level. Why should you even care? Why should you even be involved? And those who don't live in the Tennessee area, you can still hear what they're talking about and then see if something like that is happening in your area. Or if anything, it should spark you to go look and see what bills and what legislation they're passing in your local county, city, state, so that you can even know, like, be abreast of what's going on there, instead of just completely in the dark and things are just happening around you and you have no idea, because we can't afford to be uneducated in this matter. With lack of wisdom, right? We don't want to have lack of wisdom. We don't want to perish. We want to have a vision. They have the vision. They're trying to put it to forth. We do not want to perish because we can't help them to run with that. We can't push it forward and try to bring that out. So I have one final question that I would like for both of you, and we'll go ahead and let Trisha answer first. Question I want you both to answer, and then we will end the show on this note. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are taught in an inescapable network of mutuality tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly." Your thoughts, comments, or whatnot on that statement?
Mine's kind of just a paraphrase. I'm tired. Okay, basically paraphrase. And that's that, we are inherently equal. It doesn't matter what year the guys that were in government decided women and Black people could have the right to vote. We always had the right to vote. They just chose at that point, to finally let us do that inherent human right. And we are inherently interwoven and intertwined together. And the things that affect all, we have to do it together. Equality is not negotiable, and us working together and what is the stinking word I'm thinking of? Together, do it together. I lost the word. But it's not negotiable. This is how we have to live in order to move forward and progress as a civilization. So he just knew about it 60 years ago.
Right, got the wisdom back then, and we're catching up, or the world's catching up.
Yeah, and so that quote has a lot of meaning, right? Because at the end of the day, when you allow one person's rights to be infringed, when you allow one person to be treated unequal, regardless of what group they belong to, regardless of how small that group is, today it's them, tomorrow it may be you. And that's the whole point, that when you allow injustice for one, essentially you're opening up injustice for all, because eventually it'll catch up with you, and it'll be your group's turn for whatever that group is. And I always give the point that if you're so selfish that you can't just care about your neighbor, remember that today you might be in a privileged class, but I have children. What happens tomorrow when my daughter marries a Black man and has a child? Now all of a sudden it directly affects me, right? Now all of a sudden, every time my son-in-law leaves the house, or every time my grandchild leaves the house, I've got to fear whether something's going to happen to them because of the color of their skin. So what doesn't affect me today will affect me tomorrow at some point. And so we've got to take care of each other. And I don't think equality is too much to ask for any people. I think that's a pretty simple thing.
I like that. Equality is not too much to ask. And yes, your word was unity. Your word was unity. Word of the day is unity, because that's what we're talking about.
Equality kept coming out, and I'm like, I'm trying to say, what is that word?
But that is great. I would like to thank you guys again for being on the show to discuss. I say allies in action. You say this is just me every day. I appreciate even that, and not considering yourself even an ally, but just you being authentic and you just being you. And we definitely need more of that, period, so we can do away with the whole idea of having to need an ally. I do appreciate the work that you guys have been doing, the work that you guys continue to do. I definitely pray and hope that these bills that you guys are putting on the forefront, that they do one or two things, that they go through, or they bring attention to something and then somebody else pick it up and it goes through, because that's the whole point, right? Thank everybody for tuning in tonight, everyone who shared, everyone that is going to share, and everyone that's going to watch and catch the replay. If you would like to be a part of the upcoming episodes, please reach out to me and let me know, and I will be in correspondence with you over the different topics, because we are just getting started. Keep That Same Energy is back, and we are here doing the work. You guys have a great night. And above all else, remember, keep that same energy in all that you do.
Thanks for